Hi, welcome to the Crochet Cryss podcast. I'm Cryss, and thank you for joining me for a second episode. So, I wanted to talk about a few things this episode, but first, I want to talk about the podcast itself because I've been toying with the idea of filming weekly as opposed to every other week. I know, every other week seems to be like the standard, but I don't know. I kind of feel like I want to be conversing more with people, and this is just one outlet for me to do that. So I'm going to try weekly and see how it goes, but I want to talk about what that means. It means I'm not going to have a finished object every episode. I may not have a whip in every episode, or I might have something that I've been working on, but I didn't get any work done on it that week, so there's nothing new to report. I'm hoping that's okay. I'm hoping that maybe there are people out there who are interested in just having a conversation about crochet related things and just general topics in the maker community. So I'm gonna give it a shot. I'm gonna see how it goes. This is not really a thing that I'm doing specifically for like a large number of views, because I don't expect to get that. So I'm gonna just go ahead and make it the thing that I want it to be, and mostly I just want it to be a conversation. So that said, I did want to talk about a couple of the conversations I've been seeing take place in the maker community on Instagram. In the last couple of days, people have been talking about pattern prices. I guess there were complaints in some quarters about the amount designers are charging for patterns, and some people felt like the prices were like taking advantage of knitters. This really came up specifically in the knitting community, but obviously it affects crocheters just the same. And what I've been seeing in response is a lot of designers basically bearing their souls, going online and telling their stories about, the difficulties they've had in their life and their struggles with money, maybe their struggles that they have with mental health issues, and really sharing some deeply personal things as they talk about how they make their living. And I saw a designer kind of do a breakdown of how much she makes for a specific pattern, like how much she gets per pattern sale and how many patterns she needs to sell of a specific design to break even. And on another note, she said that she sells her yarn, because she also dyes yarn, and she sells yarn wholesale at a loss, which is crazy to me. And I was really frustrated seeing this, because I don't think you should have to go to those lengths and share things so deeply personal just to justify making your living. I've seen the word privilege being bandied about. Basically, designers saying that they themselves are privileged because they're doing work that they enjoy doing. And yes, not everyone is that fortunate, but people are also making sacrifices in order to be able to do that. None of these designers are getting paid for their time. None of them are getting paid for the man hours that go into creating a pattern. They're mostly getting paid for some of their expenses. They're paying tech editors, they're paying photographers, or what have you. And if they sell enough patterns to break even, they'll get that back. But they're pretty much giving their time away freely and still keeping their prices as cheap as possible for you and I. And it has been so frustrating for me to see designers doing this. Stop apologizing. Stop feeling that you're somehow unworthy. Stop feeling like you need to explain anything. Even if it's not what you do for a living, if you create one single pattern and you put in all the work that goes into creating a pattern and you choose to sell that pattern, you get to do that because you did the work. It's your time, it's your creativity, it's your talent, it's your labor, it's your effort. why shouldn't you get paid for that? Given what we're getting, I think prices for patterns are more or less reasonable. When I buy a pattern, that means I get to make something for myself. I get to make a sweater, I get to make a shawl, or whatever it is, pretty much with minimal thought, right? I'm still putting in the time to create the item, but I don't have to worry about, making increases or decreases work within a specific pattern, within a specific stitch pattern. I don't have to worry about how many starting chains I need to use to make it in my size. I don't have to worry about how to make the garment work, how to make it turn out to be something that I can actually wear. And I get to just make something for myself that I more or less know going into it, it's going to turn out, I'm going to be able to wear it because someone else has done all the work for me to be able to do that. To me, that has value. To me, that is significant. It saves me the time, the man hours that designer put into creating that thing. So I don't understand why, and I don't know if this is because we're women. I don't know if that's what's happening here. But to me, it's just ridiculous. I don't want to see any more designers apologizing or explaining or sharing things that are so deeply personal that you typically don't want to share with strangers. Just to justify charging money for their work. This is, if you're a full-time designer and this is the only thing you have to make ends meet, you absolutely have to charge money for that. And I understand there's a balance to be struck between, you making your living and knitting and crochet becoming kind of elite activities, right? Because if prices, because look, yarn is really expensive, right? Never mind patterns. Yarn is crazy. The higher prices go, the more people are going to be excluded. And that's unfortunate. And I think designers are mindful of that. Some are giving certain patterns for free. There are a lot of resources for free patterns out there just in general from big companies like Red Heart and Lion Brand and Peyton's. I think their website is Yarn Inspirations. I hate that word, but because their website, Peyton's and Karen's are the same company, and Karen's website just used to be Karen.com, and then they changed it to Yarn Inspirations, and I hate it, but it's okay. But these are places that you can go if you're really, hurting financially. There are options out there for you to find free patterns, and that's something that I'm hoping to talk about more to help in that area, to direct people towards free patterns. Also, if you've been crocheting and knitting for years, chances are you've picked up a few things, and there is no reason that you can't take it upon yourself to try to create something for yourself. A lot of us don't, because we know exactly how much work it is to try to create something original from scratch. So why wouldn't we want to pay someone else who has done the same thing? And I commented on someone's Instagram post saying that, no one's forcing me to buy patterns. I know what my budget is, and if a pattern falls within my budget, I can get it. And if it's not in my budget for that month or that period or whatever, I won't get it. And that's always up to me. I am sitting on a mountain of patterns. I actually don't need to buy any more patterns. Like, I really just don't. I want to say ever, I probably don't. But at least definitely not for the time being. But sometimes I choose to, just because I see something that's attractive and I don't want to figure it out for myself, right? Someone else has done that work, so I'm going to pay them for their work, and I'm going to be able to make something. I want designers to recognize the value in doing that and stop apologizing. Stop apologizing. Stop explaining. You are doing work. You should be paid for your work. Should be compensated. That should not be considered a privilege or a luxury for your work to be compensated. So I don't know where you all are on this subject. Trust me, I don't have money. I don't come from any privileged background. I'm pretty much just really lucky in terms of like the family support that I have. And I'm mostly crossing my fingers every day to make shit work, just to be perfectly honest with you. But I still see, and maybe it's because everything is such a struggle for me financially, that I appreciate other people's struggle. I don't just eliminate it in my mind and pretend it's not happening. So just be mindful of that when you were talking about whether something is worth the money. You know, the discussion should be about the value to you and whether you have the desire to pay for it or whether you have the ability to pay for it. But to dismiss someone's work as being valueless just because you want it for less, I don't think that's right. So I'm hoping more people will participate in this discussion, and maybe putting our heads together, we'll all be able to come up with something that can make the pattern situation work for both designers and knitters and crocheters. So that's that. The second thing I wanted to talk about is something I just saw on Instagram. I spend too much time on Instagram. The funny thing is I don't post that much, but trust me, I'm always creeping on the gram. I saw something called memademay. I'll try to, last video I had some titles in here and some photos that I put in, and somehow that all disappeared. And because I'm still learning how to work iMovie, I'm not going to promise that I'm going to have things like that on screen, but maybe I'll put it in the notes or something. But there's an Instagram account for the woman who has created the Me Made Challenge, the Me Made May Challenge. And it's just the idea that you are going to try to wear something that you've made every day in May. Or, people are basically taking some sort of Me Made pledge and just trying to keep to that pledge in May. And that got me thinking. I don't know that I'm actually going to be doing this challenge, but that got me thinking about my making as opposed to my wardrobe, right? Because when I make something, when I see a pattern, I'm just like, oh, that's cute. And typically I pick patterns that are things that I want to wear. Very occasionally, like if there's just something, a skill or something that I think I want to learn from a pattern, I might pick a pattern based on that. But mostly I'm making things because there's something I want to wear. However, I don't add things to my wardrobe by making the same way that I add things to my wardrobe by shopping. And that results in me not wearing my makes as often as I would like. What I mean is, for instance, in my wardrobe, I have a ridiculous amount of olive green. It is one of my, if you ask me what my favorite color is, I'll tell you it's purple. My bedroom is purple. I love purple. But one of my favorite colors to wear is actually olive green. And I have pants, I have skirts, I have jackets, I have vests, I have all kinds of olive green goodness in my wardrobe. I almost never buy green yarn. I was looking through my stash the other day, and even some of the things that, looking through the yarn that I helped select for my store, not a whole lot of it is green, much less olive green. And I'm like, why is there this disconnect between what I actually wear and what I choose to make? And I think part of the issue is that the things that I make, I'm not buying my yarn with patterns in mind, and I'm not buying my patterns with yarn in mind. So those two things are happening completely separately. I am buying yarn because I love it and I think it's pretty, and I'll do something with it later. And I'm buying patterns because, yes, I want to wear that, but when I finally decide to make something from that pattern, I generally going to use yarn that I already have. And I'm not necessarily thinking, when I go to a store and I see a dress or a skirt or a shirt or whatever, I am thinking about how it fits into my wardrobe. I see a shirt and I think, oh, I can wear that with these pants or that skirt, or this will look great with jeans, or, I have something perfect that'll go with that. And I'm wondering how that happened. I'm going to go ahead and pretend the phone isn't ringing. I'm sure they'll call back. but sorry about the phone ringing in the background. No one else is home to get the call right now. Okay, so I'm wondering how that disconnect has happened between what I make and what I wear. Because I was thinking about this through the lens of memademay, and I was like, well, can I do that? Could I pull off, 31 days where I wear something that I've made every day? And the answer is I'm not sure, just because there are a lot of things that I've made that I'm not sure I want to wear anymore because they don't necessarily fit my wardrobe. So maybe that's my challenge for me. Maybe my challenge for me is to just make sure that every time I make something, I'm making it to integrate it into my existing wardrobe so that it gets worn more. And I'm just wondering how many of you get to wear your makes and how often you get to wear them, because I know I watch Cozy Cottage Crochet, and Hannah sometimes doesn't get to wear her things as often as she would like, just because she's in Florida and it's hot, and that definitely impacts her making. Well, it doesn't impact her making because she still makes whatever she likes, but it impacts her ability to wear the things that she makes. And I'm wondering if, she ever thinks about making some lighter things or what have you, because I know that I need to refocus my making so that I'm having the result that I want. And that result is wearing the things that I make, especially now that, I'm trying to operate a yarn store. I definitely want to wear the things that I make more at work, especially, I'm going to be honest, because I'm a crocheter. And I think in, yarn world, which is very, very knit centric, when you say you're a crocheter, people are like, oh. So I want people to be able to see what I mean when I say I'm a crocheter, which is not necessarily, the same for everyone. People have different interests. Some people make more household items. Some people do more amigurumi or whatever. But my focus is specifically on garments, and specifically on things that fit my style. So I'm not going to do a lot of granny square sweaters, although I've seen a couple of nice ones. So I think, like I said, for May, I want to try to focus in some way on bringing my making more in line with my personal style, even more than it already is, because I have done that to some extent. But like I said, right now, I don't have the accumulation of everyday wearable pieces that I would like. So for instance, I definitely want to make more summer weight items because I live in a 4-season part of the world. I want to have things to wear for all 4 of those seasons. So it can't just be all, worsted weight sweaters all the time. And I just need to think about different ways to accomplish that. And so I was just wondering where you all are on that subject. Are you wearing your makes, and are you getting as much wear out of them as you would like? And is memademay something you think you might want to participate in? Like I said, I'm going to try to drop things in here on the screen. So I will try to put in the Instagram account of the woman who's running the memademay challenge. But I'm hoping you all will take that up a little bit in the discussion and let me know what things you're doing to ensure that once you've put hours into making something, that you actually getting to wear it as often as you would like. So that said, I do have a couple of finished objects and whips that I would like to talk about. And I guess we'll do finished objects first. I don't know if there's like an order or a way these things are typically done, but my finished object is this shawl that I'm wearing. This is the 3 Springs shawl. I keep wanting to call it the 3 Sisters shawl for some reason. This is the 3 Springs shawl by Deanna Ramsey of Addie Day Designs. And I'm super happy with how it came out. So let's show you some more. It's a crescent shawl. I like that little rippled edge. And the yarn I use, so Saturday was local yarn store day, and we actually had a custom color dyed for the event. And again, if I can figure out iMovie, I will put in an image of the Avengers Endgame movie poster, because the yarn we had dyed is called, can you see that? It's called Endgame. That's right, because it coordinates with very nicely actually, with the movie poster. My sister and I actually talked about going to a movie theater, because I don't really intend to go to the theaters to see Endgame. It'll either be on Netflix or it won't. Going to a movie theater to take a picture wearing the shawl in front of a movie poster, because then you really see how well this goes with the poster. So this is Lorna's Lace's, what's it called? Soulmate, S-O-L-E. It's a fingering weight yarn. And then these, I used some mini skeins from Lorna's Laces also. I believe this is their shepherd sock base. And I used Cheery and Zippy. And what I like about how this came out, so the pattern tells you to, put in a contrast color stripe. But that stripe is actually done over 2 rows, right? So I couldn't decide if I wanted my contrast stripe to be pink or if I wanted it to be blue. Jiminy Christmas, the phones keep ringing. Okay. They'll leave a message. But I couldn't decide if I wanted to do pink or blue. So I did 1 row of each. But the way it worked out is that because you're seeing, on this side, you're seeing the back of the pink rows and the front of the blue rows, and you're seeing more pink. But if you flip it, now you're seeing the back of the blue rows and the front of the pink rows. So you're getting one color being more dominant on one side than the other. And I love that. I love that you can kind of choose if you're in a pinky mood or a bluey mood. And then this purple is from June Price Fibers, and we just got some of her mini skeins in. We bought these at the Allentown Fiber Festival. This pattern was a very simple make. I was really, really happy with that, because things didn't work out the way there's a whole saga behind this custom dyed yarn. There's a saga. The saga includes the mini skeins. It was a whole thing. But I ended up having to finish this Friday, the night before local yarn store day, which was not at all the plan, right? But that's okay. All's well then. I mean, I was steaming it at the store. Didn't get to do a traditional wet block, but all's well that ends well, right? So I was really glad that, the pattern was very well written and very easy to follow. And I learned a new way to do ripples, to do this kind of ripple edge, because usually I either do, like say I'm doing all double crochet, I'll do 3 double crochet in 1 stitch for a peak, and then a double crochet 3 together for a valley. Or I'll just, vary the stitch height. So I'll do single, half double, double, treble, and then down the other side, double, half double, and single. So this had a slightly different technique for doing ripples, and I love when I learn something new from a pattern. I did change the hook size. So the pattern called for fingering weight yarn, but it suggested you change hooks during the make, and it suggested using a 4.5 millimeter and a 5 millimeter hook. And I did like 2 rows, and I was like, no, I don't like how loosey-goosey these stitches are coming out. So I actually dropped all the way down to a 3.5 and a 4 millimeter. And I know a lot of crocheters think that you have to use a bigger crochet hook in order to get your crochet to drape nicely. And you don't. I mean, you can, but you don't have to. I'm going to, put forward the idea that there is no inherent lack of drape in crochet. Just like with knitting, it depends on the weight of the yarn, the fiber you're using, the stitches you're using, and the size of your hooks or your needles. While the hook size that I use, 3.5, is still a little bit bigger than recommended for this yarn, because they recommend, well, they only give you a knitting gauge, and they recommend US1 needles, which is 2.25 millimeters. No way was I gonna go down that small one, because you know, I would have to add rows to resize it, and then I'd have to like fiddle with the pattern to make the lacy parts work out, to make the ripple work out. And two, because I just didn't want to work that small. I felt like 3.5 was just fine. I know some people also, when I read some project notes on Ravelry, some people did say that theirs came out really huge. One woman said, I think hers was total length like 105 inches. Another person said she actually frogged hers because she felt like it came out too big. So I would play around with your hook size if you're going to make the 3 Springs shawl. I would take your yarn and swatch it with different hook sizes and see what you actually want to use. I think the 3.5 was pretty much ideal, and mine came out to be about 6 feet. Okay, you can't see the total length. Let's see how much I can do here. But yeah, just trust me when I tell you that it's about 6 feet in length. It's just a little bit longer than my wingspan, and my wingspan's about 5.5. But yeah, I would say definitely swatch your yarn with some different hook sizes and see what actually works best for you. I personally, I'm not a fan of using really big hooks on fine yarn, because you lose what I'm gonna just coin the term stitch integrity, meaning what the stitch actually looks like and how it functions, because double crochet stitches tend to like stand up like little soldiers. And if you end up making it in a really big hook, you know, make a double crochet stitch in a hook that's just too big for that yarn, it's just gonna, that stitch is just gonna fall over. It's not gonna be drapey, it's gonna be droopy. So I would say play around with your hook size if you're going to make this. But a lot of people, I think, did use the recommended hook size and they seem perfectly happy with it. So it's just a matter of personal preference. But I did really, really like this pattern. I have the pattern for her blurred line sweater also, and I'm gonna get to that at some point. But yeah, good pattern. I think it shows this yarn really, really well, and you'll have to trust me when I tell you it actually goes with the movie poster really nicely. Okay, so now we are on to works in progress. And I don't know if any of you who are making videos have tips for how to keep your things that you want to show on camera accessible, because I'm struggling over here. So please let me know. So this is going to be the, you know, when it grows up. I have to figure out which way it goes. Okay, I think it's like this. This is going to be a skirt. This is a slant skirt from the fall 2014 issue of Interweave Crochet. And the yarn I'm using, I love how that's coming out. So I'm making it horizontally, so in the direction that the skirt is actually going to wrap around you. And the yarn is Juniper Moon Farms Cumulus Dappled. I don't have a ball band to tell you the color. Sorry about that. But this is a worsted weight cotton. I think it's 94% cotton and 6% nylon. It's not terribly stretchy, but it does have a little bit of stretch in it. This again is a pretty simple pattern, although I'm worried about one thing. So according to the schematic that was with the pattern, the top edge is level, but the bottom edge is actually going to increase some. But I don't know, I feel like I'm increasing on the wrong end, because my increases are happening at this top edge. So I'm gonna review the pattern and make sure I'm doing this right. But so far I'm actually pretty pleased with how this is coming out. This is just marking a particular row so that I know that I'm like right up until this row. So if I have to rip anything out, this tells me how far back I'll have to rip. But I feel this yarn, Feels wonderful. I know people have like really, you know, unpleasant ideas about cotton. They just think it's like awful and rough. And honestly, you know, some of it is. You know, I don't use that lilies and cream stuff because I make garments and I don't want to wear anything that is that rough. This is super soft. It feels amazing. We've sold quite a bit of this at the store actually. So this will probably live in the store for a little while as a sample, just so people can see how the dappled version of this yarn works up, because we do have some samples in the solid. But after it's been in the store for a very short while, this will be back in my wardrobe. So that's work in progress number one. I actually stopped working on it so that I could finish this shawl. So you would think, oh, I would just go right back to this and finish it before I start anything else. And under normal circumstances, I would, except y'all know I went and bought all that yarn at Allentown Fiber Festival, and I was dying to dive into it. So I'm using the Yakagani. I think this is their Yak sock base, and I am making the Rainbow Smile sweater. So again, I'm going to attempt to put a photo of the sweater in the video. We'll see how this goes. But this is top down in the round, super simple. And you may or may not remember from the last video that I will also be using these pastel rainbow colored mini skeins. In fact, I just got up to the row where I need to start using the mini skeins, but they're not wound. So I tried to hastily wind one today, and now I think I need to wind all of them before I start trying to do the rainbow part, because it's only I think 2 rows per color. So I want to have all of these done. So we'll see when we get to that. But this is another really simple pattern. I'm usually not the biggest fan of sweaters that are entirely double crochet. I feel like that can be really boring, and I'm actually just not that crazy about the double crochet stitch. I'm not. I don't know why we're not seeing more sweaters and more garments done in single crochet or even half doubles, or maybe a little camel switch if you're feeling it, camel stitch if you're feeling it, but camel switch, really. But I thought the overall design of the sweater was so cute, and I mean, I don't have to completely eliminate all double crochet sweaters from my makery, so we'll sneak this one in. But I think it's gonna come out really nicely. This is one of those things that I'm so looking forward to seeing it finished, because I'm just really in love with this design. And I am using this. This is a yarn cozy. I don't know if you can see that. Oh, look at those little tiaras. That's so cute. This is a yarn cozy from Haute Knit Yarn. She sells these on her Etsy shop, but we also just got some for the store. And you know, I don't shop on Etsy very often, so I didn't know that they did this thing where as you put something in your shopping cart, they tell you that item is currently in other people's shopping carts, and they tell you how many people have it in their shopping cart. And this was the only one left with this design with the little tiaras, and I had to have it. So I put it in my cart, and then, you know, I'm ordering for the store, so I'm picking different designs, and I'm trying to race through that order so that I can get all the ones that I'm picking that are already listed as being in other people's carts. And I must have did that whole order in 3 minutes flat. So I sure enough did snatch this out of someone else's cart, and I have no regrets about it. You know, the woman who makes these, she's gonna make more. You'll have another chance to get one, but this one here's mine. So I'm really happy. This is my first time using a yarn cozy, but let me tell y'all, I was struggling with my random rogue ball of yarn as I crochet, it always like rolls off the table, it goes under the chair I'm sitting in. It's always like a mess somehow. This has worked for me so well. It's keeping my yarn skein nice and stable, and it's really easy to work from. And it's cute. It's almost like a little yarn pet. So if you haven't tried a yarn cozy, I say give it a shot, because so far I'm really happy with my yarn cozy experience. Okay, another thing that I'm trying to do with this podcast is not make these episodes crazy long, for two reasons. One, I'm not always into long podcasts. Like if a podcast is really long, I'll just watch it in multiple sittings. So I figured maybe not everyone's into long podcasts. Maybe some people like me like want something a little bit shorter, maybe something that just covers the commute to work or whatever. But so I'm trying to keep this shorter for that reason, just because I'm sure there's some people out there who have a preference. And two, because I'm still learning how to edit videos. I told you all about the little disaster I had last week. So the shorter the video, the less editing I have to do. So I'm going to try to keep my videos all like, I had this idea to try to do 30-minute videos. That's not going to work out. But I will try to keep them under 40 minutes. And I think if I'm doing a video every week, like I'm going to try to do, it'll be a little bit easier because I won't be trying to fit too much into a single episode. All of that said, I'm going to wrap this up here. And what I will do, since I'm not sure everyone's into like the talky chatty kind of video, I'll maybe drop some timestamps below, maybe, not promising, so that you can just go to the things that interest you. And in the meantime, stay stitching. Bye.